I just watched Pixar's film Soul, and I loved it. So let's talk about Pixar's film Soul for a bit. I'm pretty sure that this film might come across as a little bit pretentious to some people. Like, if I wasn't a bit of a pretentious musician who likes jazz myself, I'm almost certain that I would have turned this film off after a couple of minutes. The jazz is pretty improvisational, and honestly, I kind of felt a bit distanced from the music because of that. Well, I say I like jazz. I kind of went off it after listening to Bitches Brew, because it's just too much. The music in this film that's the best, apart from the background music which is always brilliant in Pixar films, is the bit with that song played by a busker on the subway, which was really quite awesome. Which I really loved because I have a bit of a thing for watching buskers. If only I wasn't so good at singing, and that's what I'd be doing right now. And also the end credits song, which I saw as a music video / trailer for this film. That song is really good, and the best song in the whole film. So it's a real shame that they don't really seem to use it apart from the end credits. Unless I missed them using the melody or something in some other part of the film. I was kind of expecting this to happen in that bit where he starts improvising on the piano with all those bits the unborn character collected while she was possessing this body so that he could go into a trance and meet up with her again in the spirit realm. But I don't think they did. But the only bit I actually remember from that song is the vocals, so I probably wouldn't have noticed. Unless they had him singing. But he never did that in the rest of the film, so it'd been weird to have him doing it all of a sudden, singing, like in proper genres. I think I've got some explaining to do, with the whole spirit realm thing. The pitch for this film is a little bit mad, and, well, a bit pretentious. And it really spoke to me. Hopefully not because of the pretentiousness, but, well, maybe that too as well, actually. But because this is a film about a musician who never made it, and I'm a failed musician as well, so it really spoke to me. I felt very represented here. It didn't quite resolve anything, more than just make me think about stuff that I've already thought about. But it resonated a lot, and I appreciated this film because of that. It actually made me feel a little bit better with my failings. I wish it pushed it a little bit further and had a little bit more exploration of that acceptance. But still, I felt very represented. So what happened in this film then? This will probably be quite spoilery, but not enough to ruin it, probably. Even if you know exactly what happened in this film, I think there's still going to be something valuable you can get out of it. So this film is about a music teacher who works in a school like that one from Sister Act 2, where no one gives a shit about anything, apart from that one tromboner. But the teacher doesn't want to be a teacher, he wants to be a real musician. Well, a jazz musician. So when he gets offered a full-time teacher's job, he's a little bit unhappy about it, which his mother really doesn't like because there's no money in gigs. That's too real. Anyway, he finally lands his big gig, his big break, but he accidentally dies before it happens. So now he's a soul about to pass on, but he's not having any of it, so he runs away from the light and ends up in the place where the souls go through their, starting stats menu. You know, where they choose their character traits? Or at least their traits get chosen for them by those fourth-dimensional, very stylized graphic design aliens. Are they aliens? There's a lot of questions that will arise here. But they do look cool, so it doesn't matter. Really, the design of these characters are pretty great. It's like a combination of neon 80s and 1920s expressionism. And I love both of those things. And it really excels, in my opinion, when one of these guys has to go into the real world. And how he interacts with the world around him is really creative and really fun. And I liked it an awful lot. Anyway, where was I? He ends up finding his route home by mentoring one of these pre-people souls who needs to find their spark before they can be born. And their spark is like the thing that they like. Like how this dude's thing is jazz, or well, piano specifically. But she doesn't connect with anything, and she doesn't want to be alive. That's too real too. So obviously, they accidentally end up with the soul who doesn't want to be alive, ending up in the body of the pianist. And the pianist goes in a cat. And that's where things get really interesting. Because the lost soul learns that she loves the experience of being alive, but all the things that she connects with are all small things, like walking and smelling and looking, just being. She loves it. So all that little stuff that you overlook is her spark. What made her want to live was being alive. Small things, just existing stuff. So here they start to show that the pianist perhaps doesn't have music as his spark, but his obsession. Or it is his spark, the thing that he loves, but that doesn't mean it's his purpose or his reason for being. his reason for being alive. And that obsession means he isn't really living. There's this whole lovely scene in a barbershop where the soul possessing the pianist just asked the guy about his life. This guy wanted to be a vet, but ended up being a barber, so he should be a failure, right? Because he's not achieved his purpose, the thing he wanted to do. But not in his eyes. This shows two things. That his obsession meant that he only ever talked to the barber about jazz, which is fine, and the pianist like that, but they had no connection. It didn't really mean anything to both of them, just to him because he was the one talking about his passions, which is quite selfish really. And this also allowed him to start to think that not achieving the dreams of his obsession might not actually be the end of the world. So when he finally gets to play his dream gig, he doesn't feel the feelings that he thought he would feel at the end. I imagine that he felt a bit hollow afterwards. I felt a bit hollow after gigs. You get a really big come down. I mean, I never had a packed room and a standing ovation, but even with a handful of teenagers just looking at their phones the whole gig, you get a bit of a come down after that. Or that might have been the overwhelming sense of despair that you're wasting your life and no one cares. Anyway, I think here he realises, or he's meant to realise, that success isn't all it's cracked up to be. Sometimes. It seems to imply that he feels this way because he all of a sudden realises that he has to do the performances again. Like he has to do them day after day after day after day. So there's no big moment where he's made it, he just has to keep on going. It's a little bit like that Alan Watts thing. You know, you keep working and doing and striving and you always expect that moment to come where you go, yes, I've made it, I've done it, I did it. But it never really comes, does it? Which is fine, I guess, for the story, and for implying that message. But he does seem like the kind of guy who would enjoy the performances anyway. Like he really seems to like playing. So this bit doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, it was the performing again and again and again constantly that I really like the most. But it's a bit harder for them to show creative drain or something like that. Unless, of course, it was an unpaid gig, which wouldn't surprise me. That would make the constant gigging scene a bit not worth it. Oh geez, that's too real again too. Anyway, whatever the reason, and I'm not sure, but it's what I read into it, he comes across as accepting his place. Perhaps to embrace being a teacher, but they never really show that. It would just make sense because of the whole him being a teacher and teaching the soul person. Because his experience with the lost soul character kind of shows that his real purpose is as a teacher and a mentor. His passion for life, even though his life is a bit shit and tragic, was really quite inspiring. So the soul wants to become alive after not wanting to, and then having a crisis of confidence and thinking she's not worthy of life because she has no purpose. And I think the main character, after really wanting to be a pianist and successful musician, I think accepts not being one, not being so obsessed, and wants to embrace the small special things about being alive. It's almost like it says there's no purpose in life, and that is the purpose. Or the purpose in life is to be alive. And I love that last bit. I love that it shows that achieving the big goal not really being that much of anything. You know that achievement is like an anticlimax almost for the character, and then seeing more of the beauty in the mundane things. I love this so much because it's exactly how I felt when I was sacked from that last band. I had all these dreams of what I'd love to do, the studios I'd love to record in, the gigs I'd like to do, and I felt crushed when I saw all that slip through my fingers, like the dust in sunbeams. But I went through this acceptance of all my failures, and now I much more enjoy the smaller things, the mundane things. I wanted more than anything to be in a successful band headlining Glastonbury, but now the biggest dream and achievement I could dream of now is being able to spend my life walking around and looking at stuff. And I love how boringly beautiful a desire that is. You know, there's a lot of beauty and wonder in the world, and sometimes obsession can blind you to that. I can really see this film not feeling very relatable to some people who can't really get into it or feel anything from it, or they just feel like it's trying too hard to be clever or something, and then people perhaps not really getting what the point of it is or what it's trying to say, which I kind of get, because it's not really that obvious what it's trying to say. I think I'm just reading stuff from myself in it. You know, it's vaguely representative of me, so I'm filling in a lot of blanks, I think. Because I also don't feel like it's really clear what they're trying to say. If I'm being charitable, I'd say it feels like it's left a bit open so you can read into it some of your own things, I think. Probably. But I really feel what it says to me. That success isn't everything, and appreciating the small things in life in its own way is a successful life worth living. They could have said it a little bit clearer and a little bit better. I mean, they kind of just show this and then the film stops. But still, I'm quite happy that this film exists. I really like it. I feel ever so represented. 9 out of 10.